Birth doesn't have to be this scary thing. And I want to just explain a little bit about why it's kind of portrayed as being scary.
So today we're going to start off with a trigger warning because we are both very sensitive to who you are and where you're at in your life. And this is going to be the first time we're actually talking about childbirth. And we feel it's super, super crazy necessary because for those that are trying to conceive and are having a difficult time, I'll tell you, once you get pregnant, and if you've been there before and haven't had a baby, there's like so much stress along the way. So it's not just about trying to get pregnant. There's stress about during pregnancy, especially early stage. And then once you get more comfortable, then there's stress and fear around childbirth and then motherhood and then kid going off to university. It really just never ends.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
Totally. Mm-hmm.
So the point is, if this is too triggering, we invite you to come back when it's time for you to revisit. Okay. Because we are talking about childbirth. And the reason why we're doing this is because, again, we feel it really necessary to help women and couples embrace your childbirth and perhaps conquering the fears and worries that go along with it. And who better to ask than Stacy McPherson, who is in the house right now with us, although from Hawaii, I might add, which
Welcome,
means that
Stacey.
It is like, yeah, like what time is it there, Stacy?
7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Oh, thank you for getting up early with the sunshine. Is that a real backdrop? Could be.
So, we welcome Stacy because just automatically we grant her as an expert at childbirth because number one, she herself naturally conceived and had 7 babies and had you described it orgasmic childbirth. Is that what you said? Yes. And so really, we want to know your secrets so that when the time comes for the ladies that are going to have babies, let's share your secrets and whatever else. And your background is that you're also a doula. So you've been assisting other people that have been going through this. And so we would love to hear what you share with your clients and, tell your story. And so how do you want to start it, Tanya? Do you want to?
I want to jump right into the orgasmic births.
Okay.
because my mother told me, as you were just before we got on, you weren't here, that she had 3 orgasmic births to deliver us. And I always thought she was a little bit nuts, to be honest. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can have that. I didn't. I had amazing births. Took me time to conceive, as everyone knows who have been listening to our podcasts, but my birth experience was amazing. And I want women who have struggled with fertility or not to enjoy that same experience if possible. So tell us about the orgasmic births. What does that mean? And did that happen all 7 times for you? So tell us about that, Stacy. We'll jump in there.
Firstly, I just want to say how happy I am to be here and how much I love your podcast. These ladies are amazing. If you haven't seen any of their other episodes, I would strongly encourage you to go through them. They're fascinating. Really, they do such a good job and they're just so relatable. Oh, the wisdom is just solid. So yeah, just a little plug for them because they're amazing.
Stacy, you're the best.
Aw, thank you.
And I love
there's no compensation, by the way.
Yes, there's no endorsements.
There's no endorsement here. It's just straight from the heart. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to kind of address those of you who are struggling with conception and are looking ahead to birth. And I just want to kind of tell you that there's a story out there that's my story that I lived, that birth doesn't have to be this scary thing. And I want to just explain a little bit about why it's kind of portrayed as being scary. And so if you think about when you watch the news, do you get on the news and hear about a woman holding a cat and petting a cat and how happy she is to be sitting in the afternoon sunlight? Do you read stories like that? Not very often. You hear stories about crime and devastation and violence and things that are just attention getting and dramatic, right? Because that's what catches people's attention. So anything you've seen or heard in the media, I'm talking movies and news and just anything, TV and things that you see in the media that are addressing birth, what are they going to do? They're going to make it attention getting, right? It's not attention getting to see a woman at ease, a woman who's comfortable and relaxed, a woman who's actually enjoying childbirth. That wouldn't be very dramatic, would it? No. And so keep this image of like a woman who is centered and balanced and sitting there relaxed with her pet in her arms and the sunlight on her shoulders. Capture that image and see that I'm actually going to share my story with you, that's how birth can be. It can be a beautiful, relaxed woman, a woman who is centered and joyful. So that's my experience. And so when we talk,
it's perfect. I like the analogy, and it's dispelling the fear around birthing as like almost like a medical event. It's not a medical event. It's birthing. That's why we're all here. Right.
I love that. And that's well put as well, Tanya. And so again, addressing any kind of sensitivity, there may be a lot of women that are watching this as they are trying to conceive still or very early in pregnancy. And so there may be that whole comparison. It's like, who is she that hasn't had fertility challenges? How can she understand me who've been trying to conceive for so many years? But this is not what we're talking about, is it? It's about embracing life and the ability to create and birth life.
And that it's a natural event, embracing your womanhood and knowing that you and your baby have the power to birth naturally. And we'll talk about if it doesn't happen that way as well. But Stacy's going to tell us what that looks like.
Yes. Right? And so I wanted to carry that on a little bit and say that that your feelings about birth can affect your contraception story. It can affect your infertility story. So just check in with yourself for a moment and say, how do I feel about birth? Am I open to birth being more calm, more relaxed, more that I could do it well? Like, think about, could I do it well? Could I be rise to the occasion and really handle this well? And so I want to give you some tools and some ideas that will really help you feel more confident. If you don't feel that centered, confident feeling about someday giving birth, then I want to give you some tools that kind of aid you in that process. So that's another reason why I'm here today.
I love that, because of course what you're also addressing is that, when there's so much fear before you even conceive, you're already in this contracted stage. And what do we need and what do we want when we want to conceive? We actually need to be in that open, inviting, receptive stage, right? So if we have down the line, it's not even in sight yet, but you have fears around childbirth, then that may not help. I'm not saying that, and there's no research evidence to say that if you fear birth, that you're going to have infertility. That's not what we're saying at all. That said, it certainly keeps you contracted and keeps you in that fear mode. And what we know with fear and retention of fear is that it can impact our physiology.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I agree 100%. Yeah, exactly. So then when thinking about birth, if you can get yourself into a safer space, a more confident space, and to have actually someone who's done it, so someone who's lived it 7 times and looked forward to each time, that you can actually have that vision in your head and be like, somebody out there enjoyed her births and someone has, she can help me with it. So
where were you when I was pregnant, man? That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. So yes, Tanya, can you just tell us a little bit more about your births,
Sure.
How you're actually very special to talk about birth the way you talk about birth. So I'd like to hear a little more about your experience.
I had such a beautiful experience with both births. I felt so blessed because I had struggled for a while. So I got to labor without an epidural because I was more afraid to get the epidural than I was to labor naturally. Just because of some of the side effects that I had heard from other patients around bladder health and back pain, chronic post birthing. And they were intense births, but it was like a nice, slow, gradual lead up. And I got to stay at home until I was 8 centimeters for baby number 1, go and labor at the hospital. I knew, I was like, oh, it'll take the midwife showed up. They're like, you're 8 centimeters. Do you want to get a emergency vehicle to the hospital? And I said, no, it'll probably take like another 2 hours per centimeter. I'm good. And I went to my hypno birthing state. And then it did take another 4 hours. I don't know if I told my brain or my body to do that, and then I had a doula, had a midwife or midwives, and I was able to, have a beautiful experience with baby number 1. And then number 2, from beginning to end, like that stage 1 plus active labor for baby number 1 was probably about 24 hours, but I just went into a zone and after the active labor started. So I kind of just enjoyed myself until I was like, okay, it's time to, everyone go away that was hanging out with me and go into a zone during active labor. And for baby number 2, the water broke first, which is not, typical, but, and then it was a 2-hour active labor. And I thought, oh, this isn't like baby number 1. If it keeps going like this intensely, I'm not actually quite sure if I can stay in my hypno state, but it was only 2 hours from beginning to end. And we got to the hospital and pushed her out right away. And daddy caught her. Like the midwife tripped over the scale trying to come to grab baby as she was on her exit, but she wanted to enter the world before the midwife could catch her.
Wow, that's amazing. And I see this as a future topic, by the way, in terms of you have, as for the first one anyway, you went through the fertility clinic. And I find that it's very easy once you're in the fertility clinic, then you just do everything clinical, right? Meaning going to an OB and delivering at hospital. So it'd be interesting to do a podcast on that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Topic.
Yeah. They considered me high risk. And I was like, I'm not high risk. I'm pregnant now. So what if it was an IVF pregnancy? Don't consider me high risk.
Yeah. So we can
healthy. Mm-hmm.
And like more from a perspective of choice, like we give you the information and you make informed choice about what you want to do and your birth. Right. Yes. So, I totally did not have that experience. I had like the opposite of that experience. And I think it's really important to note that people have a very wide variety of experiences, and either no matter how the baby comes, hopefully it's, a healthy baby to term. Right. And so I will share my story, but I'd love to hear, Stacy, your 7 births, for Pete's sakes. Start with 1. Start with number 1. Were you scared for number 1?
So I was given a gift by my mother. She allowed me to come to the birth of my sister. And it was the most beautiful, peaceful experience. We were singing. I have 8 siblings. And so at the time, 7 of us were standing around my mother giving birth, singing songs and and so actually after that experience, I wanted to give birth. I never was given the fear story.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How old were you?
I was 11.
Wow.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so since then, wanting to give other people that experience, I had to really learn about the fear story and learn from their perspective. What are they overcoming? How is birth normally portrayed? And I wanted to give one of my tools very quickly. And that is, when you're in labor, your uterus has 2 bands of muscles. One goes around this way and one goes this way. And they
wait. Not everybody sees. So on a podcast, can you describe what that is, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
You have a vertical band of muscles that goes top to bottom, and you have a horizontal band of muscles that goes horizontal. So around the circle of your uterus and around the top to bottom of your uterus, 2 bands of muscles. And they're working together to bring this baby. And when they're working together, it's a beautiful, seamless thing where they open the cervix like a flower. They're opening it. And that's how it's designed to work. Well, in nature, if there's something wrong, if there's danger, the animal needs to stop labor and get to a safe place. So there's a mechanism designed for those muscles to actually work against each other, to not open that uterus, to not dilate the cervix. And so it's very important that we have this reflex for safety, right? But once we get into the hospital, if we don't feel safe, guess what our muscles are going to do? They're going to work against us. So that feeling of the muscles working against is very painful. And it's what a lot of women experience the entire time they're in labor, the muscles working against themselves instead of going toward this beautiful opening of the cervix. And so just realizing the way to actually have less pain in labor is to relax. And I love how what you said, Tanya, how you learned hypnobirthing, and I totally recommend it. I'm certified. You look into it. I mean, maybe you could do a future one on that, because I would love to hear how you got into that and everything. But that is like so powerful, such a powerful way to get that relaxation, to have those muscles working together to bring that baby safely and with much, much less pain than typically is expected.
Beautiful. I could visualize my cervix opening, but I didn't really think about the muscles as much. I do know that whole concept of fight, flight, freeze. Like if you're, stressed and tight and fearful, then all your blood is diverting away from your uterus. So it makes total sense to even visualize that all working together and, going into whatever state helps you, whether you're using hypnobirthing or some other mechanism. What do you do courses for hypnobirthing?
So I have in the past. Currently, I'm not, but I recommend looking into them in your area.
Right,
Cool.
for sure.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
now, actually, since the pandemic, there's online courses too,
Yes.
right? So if it's hard to get out of the comfort of your own home, and it's still very helpful to do them remotely. So you might want to offer that online for people. People may gravitate towards you anywhere you are, right?
True, very true.
So I'm going to, divulge very, very personal information. And because we really talk about everything here.
Yes, everything.
This is like our church or something. I don't know what it is. So when I was going through, I didn't really think I was fearful at all during my pregnancy, because it took us 6 years to conceive and have our baby. I was in a disbelief, kind of like, this is surreal. I don't know if it's really happening, and I'll believe it when she comes out of me, right? And when she's birthed. So the actual fear of the childbirth wasn't huge. I actually looked at it more of a science project, which is kind of insane. Because,
so cute.
being a science girl that I am.
Yeah.
And and I love getting ideas from my patients. And unfortunately, this wasn't the best idea, but she bought this, what is it called? Would you call it like a bladder? Like this little plastic pumpy thing that you would stick into your cervix. Do you know about this, Stacy and Tanya?
I do.
It's called Epino. Yes. I don't even know if they sell them anymore, but at the time it was pretty new. And my patient she was telling me how she was using it and how she put it there. And every day you're supposed to pump it, but you're supposed to start slow. And over time you help it to expand. Well, of course, you're using technological advice. Like, how inviting and how relaxing is that? Not. And of course, for me, I'm always a crammer. So it's like, I didn't do let's maybe rub myself and use some cream. I don't know if you do any of that yourself, like rub some oil and try to soften the cervix on your own. But I didn't do any of that. And I bought this Epino. So I shoved it up there, the last 2 weeks before I'm supposed to birth. And I'm like, okay, well, go big or go home. And unfortunately, I over pumped one of the day, being overzealous. And I started to get a little bit of fluid come out. And because of that, I was really not in labor at all, right? It was forced. And unfortunately, the second piece of the story was that because I tested GBS positive, then all of a sudden it's like, you have to go to the hospital. You don't want any, threat to the baby, right? So I phoned my REI friend, I won't say names, my reproductive endocrinologist. And I said, hey, this is what's going on. Should I really go? Do I have to go to the hospital? Really, my body's not ready. I just did something really stupid. She's like, no, you actually should go to triage. So basically, I was really close to due date. And because I was 44, as Tanya says, they automatically stick you in a high risk category. So they wanted me there and they said, let's just get you going. And so they basically, used epidural, used oxytocin to try to get me going. And I wasn't ready. And so we tried for 2 days, I think. And then in the end, I had to go through a C-section. There's much more involvement to that. But the point is, it was, I did something silly. But you know what? I have no regrets, because at the end of the day, I actually could say, yeah, I did try childbirth because I really tried for like 2 days. and so I experienced that, and I experienced C-section, which everyone has fears around. It's like, you know what? I've got you covered for both ends now, how to deliver naturally and how to go through C-section with ease.
Very good. And speaking to that, many of you may have more of an intervention type of birth, and then that's okay. Like, there are times where the health of the baby, it's always paramount, right? So whenever you're considering birth, say, I want everything to be as close to my birth plan as possible. But if the baby needs any kind of resuscitation or help or speedy delivery, that I'm open to that. Give yourself that opening and that relaxed feeling toward any kind of intervention that's necessary. And so that's what I always do is I mentioned birth plan, and maybe you haven't heard that term before as a listener. And what it is you just kind of make your ideal birth. Like, what would I like my birth to be like? And how much intervention would I like? Do I want my water broken to speed labor up? Do I want Pitocin? Do I want, kind of do the checkpoint? What things do you want and not want in your birth? And then bring that to the labor, and actually you can give it to your doctor, and they will keep it on the clipboard, and you can make copies for the nurses, so everyone kind of knows this is my preference. And so you can have a plan. And I would highly recommend a doula, because the doula can be there to kind of support that plan and be just reminding everyone that, what the woman want, what you want, what your birth plan it says to do. And so I highly recommend a birth plan. And then one of the things the birth plan does is it brings your personality, your preferences kind of to light for the caregivers. So think about how if the doctor's aware that you have preferences and you want things to be as safe and not, natural, if that's what you want, or, whatever your preferences are, what it does is it gives you a personality of a presence in the room. Instead of just being another number, another patient, another person, instead you have this personality. And I have one more tip that brings this personality even more, and that is bring your own decor, wear your own clothing, have your own music, bring some sort of aromatherapy. So the moment those care providers step in your room, they're like, this is different. She's taking action. She's taking care of herself. She has a spirit, this room has ambiance. Like, you want to, and the doctors will say, just wear the hospital gowns. It's so easy, because then you don't have to worry about your own belongings getting stained or anything like that. But I just strongly recommend getting one that you don't mind if it gets stained. It's a special event. You would wear a wedding dress to your wedding. Bring clothes that you feel comfortable with. And even if you only wear it once, it's a special event. So I highly recommend that, because it sends this message to the care providers that this woman is in charge of her own well-being and her baby's well-being. Yes, we take advantage of all the wealth of knowledge that our doctors and care providers have, but we also are educated ourselves, and we have a say. So that's another message.
Wow. I can't, I'm just stopping right there, because it's like, to be able to sit in your own clothes, would they even allow that in the hospital? I've never.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Yes. See, I did not know that.
But I guess I would imagine OBs, I'm trying to think. So for our babies, I was wearing my own clothes, and then we had music in the room, but we had midwives. So I would imagine it's a choice, right? You don't have to wear the gown.
Oh my gosh.
It's not a must, but it's such a great idea to generally recommend it. I don't think to recommend that. I did it for myself because I just was like, a bit neurotic. I'm like, ew, hospital clothes.
No, that's awesome.
I just want to be comfortable.
I was cold. So I actually wore the gown and then with my robe on top. But that was a disaster because my robe on top actually pulled out the epidural, and then they were giving me more Pitocin, not knowing that my epidural was not there. And so they were like blasting me, and I'm like, and then they're looking at me like I was a total wimp. And I'm like, I think I'm a wimp. And then they discovered that it wasn't like working at all.
No.
So I was like feeling it all. And then they shut up.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Yes. So that's one, actually, that's a very good example for women to be prepared for a non-medical birth, a non-intervention birth, just in case something like that happens. You can't always predict your epidural will work or everything will go according to their plan. Yeah. Yes. And really also one of the things that came to mind as you were speaking was this, and you've had such a contrast, right? Because you've said you've had the intervention birth and then the more natural birth. And so one of the things that came to mind is when you are approaching birth and you're thinking about the way that you anticipate birth, how your mindset's very important, right? And so I wanted to share with you this idea, and that is that birth is the way your body is designed to work. It is made to give birth. This is something that your body's designed to do. And so whenever you're doing something that your body is designed to do, but it's uncomfortable, I call it good pain. And if it's ever something that your body's not designed to do, that's like an injury, then I call it bad pain. And so can you hear the rooster in the background? This is really
This is Hawaii, guys.
That's right.
This is
Hawaii.
Wow,
So
cool.
cool.
Yes. So good pain. Your body's doing what it's supposed to. Exercise, stretching. You're healthy. It's expanding your ability, right? But then bad pain. It's injury. So you need to care for it and rest and recover, right? But birth is good pain. It's how your body is designed to work. And the more you work along with your body, you can have that good experience of being able to be relaxed and centered and not fearful, because even though there's a lot of work going on, a lot of exercise of those muscles, and it can be considered painful. If you think of it as good pain, it's a world of difference in your perspective.
Love that.
That is a great idea.
So refreshing. And now, of course, I'm now going to go on another tangent when it comes to fear in partnership and the partners in the room and the fear of pooping with your partner being there. How would you address that?
Pooping while in labor, right? Because that can happen. Or throwing up and like
well, I did both.
So did I. Yeah. It's like, it happens. Yeah.
So like, how do you get around, Stacy, the fear of that? Like, fear of, oh my gosh, maybe my husband later on won't find me attractive because here he is witnessing me pooping, Like that's there. It's really there.
You do. You need to think about all scenarios and be like, okay, you need to pre-approve it. And even prep him like this. These are some things that might happen. Yes, I think it's good to kind of look ahead and say, well, what are the things that could happen that could potentially be embarrassing, or, and privacy is an issue as well, right? People are coming in and out, and so you're dealing with things like that. So what my advice is that, or not even my advice, is to share with you awareness. And maybe ladies would agree that when you are in labor, your circle of awareness shrinks. You're not noticing that. When you're in hard labor, you're not noticing what's going around so much. Really, you aren't so aware. Your circle shrinks of awareness. And so you're just it's your body and the people who are right close to you. And so you don't have the same frame of mind. Am I correct?
100%. You're right.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
For sure.
I mean, my intention was to not necessarily stay in that hypnobirthing state so I could communicate once in a while. But when you're in kind of more, I guess you could call it like hard active labor or transition, you don't have any awareness. You're literally just going in, all your energy is going down to your abdomen, your uterus, to just let go. So that's a lot of energy that it takes to ground yourself and not pay attention. So that's why it's so important to have a team, a doula, your spouse, your partner, somebody to support you so you feel safe. right?
Yes.
So that's safety.
As you go
huge.
inward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a really great point. And so going back to the fears about how things will look like, because then that's your ego, then it's like, get that out of the way before you get into your birthing, labor and delivery, right? Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Very good. And I wanted to do, because I always like to give people practical application. Like, don't just tell me the theory, like actually tell me how to do this. And so one of the ways that you can practice on the awareness of good pain and bad pain is next time you're exercising, kind of tune in to the way that it feels when it's you would say it's painful. It's not comfortable, but it's moving you toward your goal, and your body is working the way it was designed. So think the next time you're in that situation, kind of think about it and think, okay, this is good pain. This is the way my body was designed. And you can do it very intentionally with something like stretching, where you stretch and you feel it and you're like, this is safe. This is good. This gives my body, more flexibility in the future. But it hurts. You're like, but it hurts. Like, we are trained to think if it hurts, it's bad. But no, let's retrain that. And let's be open to good pain, healing pain that grows our muscles. And then birth is exactly that. It's doing something the way the body was intended. So that's my kind of take home application, is to practice awareness of good pain and bad pain intentionally.
So with that, and being so open to the birth experience, how much, if any, did you get in the way of tearing?
So I have so this is very exciting. So I had a similar experience to you, Tanya, where the doctor wasn't there to deliver the baby, and the nurse was just busy on the side, and I knew that baby was coming. Mm-hmm. And so I was on my hands and knees, and okay, ladies, trust yourself. You have power, you have awareness, you have a gift. Trust yourself. If someone's saying, don't listen to the mother, just say, can we listen to me? Just stop and listen. We have intuition. And guess what that intuition guided me to do? To put counter pressure on that baby's head. This was before I was a doula, before I knew any about it.
So cool.
Right.
I put counter pressure on that baby's head, and I delivered a 9-pound, 8-ounce baby with no tearing.
Wow, that's amazing.
What number baby was that?
That was
number one.
That was number one?
No, it was my third.
Third
I was
one.
Third baby.
Mm-hmm. I was a doula after my 6th baby. So it was
It's like, I need to have 6 babies down before I become a doula, because that's when I'm allowed to be called an expert.
So before we hopped on this call, I had mentioned that I had torn because with our daughter, she was coming so quickly. And intuitively, though, I just felt the need to push. And the midwife said, okay, if you want to practice, go ahead. And I said, no, this isn't practicing. So I felt to roll over on the side. But, retrospectively, it would have been great to just hold her head as I slowly pushed.
Yes.
But I had the urge to really push, and she gave out, and it was a tear. Right. But it was mild to moderate. It healed. I'm all good now. And so I much prefer that. I was so afraid of any kind of epidural or to get an episiotomy, because that happens often, right? Where you're not aware of your pushing, and then the need for scissors, which is that just made me very fearful for me.
Let's do the next episode on that piece. I think that would be really brilliant about, I can't even say the word right now. Episiotomy. Episiotomy and stuff like that. Like, we can talk about that if that's okay. But Stacy, I just love that visual of you using counter pressure. And I can just imagine how that's truly being connected to your baby, right? It's not your own personal experience. You are actually like really connecting to the baby physically with your hand and energetically. That's so powerful. Mm-hmm. Love it.
So then I delivered the baby without anyone around. I delivered the baby.
That's amazing.
No one was ready for you. You were like, just going.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Amazing. Did you cut the umbilical cord on your own?
No, my husband wanted to do that. So
okay. So cool. So cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for these are amazing tips. Can you reiterate the 3 tips that you just shared?
Yes.
So
3 tips are to, number 1, realize that your muscles can work together, not against each other. And then the pain is much less. So relaxation, address fear issues beforehand. Really bring it down to the most relaxed, safe space that you can. That's number 1. And number 2 is to have a birth plan and to bring your personality, your confidence to the room by bringing your own belongings, your own music, your own aromatherapy, anything you can bring to make that room just stand out as your room, and then have that birth plan and you give copies to everybody. You can even go over it with your care provider during the pregnancy. And so having that birth plan, having that confidence and your personality in the room. And then the third one is to really practice being aware of good pain and bad pain and making the difference so that your brain allows for strenuous activity of your uterus working while you're in labor without labeling it as bad pain and something you want to get away from.
Wow, that is so helpful and insightful. So I hope you ladies will write notes about this and remember it and carry it with you for your birth. Oh my gosh. Well, the child's birth, your birth, whatever. I think it's the birth of your own motherhood anyway. So yes, your birth.
Yes.
Thank you. And guys, come back and we are going to talk more about this topic more in depth. And we're super excited to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
We started out this episode talking about orgasmic birth. So I would love in the next episode to start with that and kind of get you to explain more on that. I would love to hear.
Love it. Okay. Thanks, guys.